The best chats are always the unscripted ones. There are interesting stories all around us, and here's one of them.
Open your eyes, spectacular's right in front of you.
Oh yeah, this is totally unscripted, so we never know where this is going to go.
Dangerous.
This is the unscripted perspective.
Turn the volume
And
up.
here's your host, Phil Parker. Phil Parker. Phil Parker. Phil Parker.
Well, hello. It is another unscripted perspective and a very special guest this episode. He's my brother. He's an amazing guitarist and music teacher, and he's released a new solo album. So welcome, Russ. How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good. It's been fun. I'm up late and you're up early, so we'll... It's going to be a fun conversation.
My coffee machine had almost as much trouble getting up as I did this morning.
Yeah, it's always the same way.
It's just like, what the-
Yeah, what are you doing up this early? So yeah, I mean, we had a conversation earlier, and it was kind of just what we're talking about right now is your music and the fact that you started really early in your life and did a lot of things and ventured through the music world. You're a music teacher. You went back to college. And then you made an album. So I mean, it's pretty awesome stuff. We got comments flying in already. What's up, Chadrick? Thanks for tuning in, my friend. I know it's late where you are. So Chadrick, this is my brother, in case you didn't hear the intro. Awesome guitarist and music teacher, but trying to make it big somewhere, I hope. But yeah, so Russ, you started pretty young. When did you start guitar? I mean,
playing an instrument, I guess I actually started kind of late. I mean, it seems early, but it's kind of late, really. Most of the real I don't know, my heroes and stuff, they all started playing piano or something when they're like 5 or 6 years old. I didn't really start till I was in my really early teens on the guitar. So, I mean, I picked up a few instruments before that to try out, but nothing ever really stuck. You know, I think I started with the recorder, as everyone did, and I tried the trumpet and the violin and stuff. And then I didn't really pick up the guitar until I actually wanted to learn the drums. But as I'm sure all the drummers in the world will know, you can't convince your parents to get you a drum kit, because that's just loud. And
yeah.
you know, in a lot of ways, I'm glad I didn't, because you can never practice the drum kit. You know, in a family home, it's just not it's not a practical instrument. So.
But now that's kind of evolved a little bit, because they've got the rubber pads and stuff that you can
that whole
synthesize
side exactly. So I mean, on the record, all of the drums is actually me playing on a rubber pad, basically. So I did end up doing that the long way around, but yeah. So but as far as guitar goes, I kind of started sort of later, I guess, a little bit. As I said, it doesn't seem later, because it's like I was maybe 13, I think, when I picked it up.
Yeah.
Which is still obviously young, but that's my excuse for not being quite as amazing as you think I am.
What was it about the guitar that kind of attracted? I mean, you mentioned a few. I mean, drums being one that you probably couldn't because it was too loud. But
it was Guns N' Roses, really. Eric Clapton, Guns N' Roses. You know, Slash with his Marlboro hanging out of his mouth, and you know, just the appeal of being that guy in a leather jacket and getting all the girls, because at the time, you know, you had to play guitar to get the girls. Now you have to play football or whatever, but yeah, back then guitar was still such a massive kind of mainstream thing. It was just all about that rock and roll life, really.
Yeah. And I mean, you kind of went down. I mean, I guess you joined a band. So my memory, because being my older brother and everything, my memories of it is that the parents always talk behind closed doors. Oh yeah, he dropped out of school. He did this. He did that. Um, but you kind of, you had that rocker image. You had the long hair. You joined a band. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I used to. I didn't kind of technically, I guess, I didn't really drop out of school, but for all intents and purposes, I kind of did. You know, I didn't really. I stopped trying at school once I started kind of getting interested in music and being in a band and stuff. But yeah, I just kind of grabbed onto that, really, that sort of whole ethos of yeah, I want to be I want to be doing that. I want to be going around and playing places and stuff. It wasn't even really a like a fame thing or anything like that. It was just more like, it seems like it's going to be more fun than working a 9 to 5 job. Just,
yeah,
I mean, the reality is at sort of the level that we were at, it isn't more fun. You know, it's shit, because you're kind of coming back late at night, sort of playing to 4 people in some pub in the middle of nowhere somewhere. The landlord's trying to stiff you on what he's promised to pay because nobody turned up and all that sort of stuff. So it's
yeah.
kind of, it's a bit of a sort of a fairy tale that doesn't really exist, unless you sort of immediately make it into the sort of the limelight. It's yeah, it's it was a fun time, and it was a journey, but it's not. I don't recommend it, really. I don't want my daughter to follow that path.
Well, yeah, I mean, most parents would say the same thing. They don't want their kids to follow in their footsteps or whatever. But like the music that you guys made was, I mean, your friend put it on SoundCloud because a lot of people followed you and thought your music was actually really good, me included. There was an element of it that, I mean, if you released it, if you were kind of together now, maybe it would be received a little different, because then it seemed like there was a lot of bands that maybe in that kind of mold, because you were kind of following in footsteps of like Guns N' Roses, like you said, or bands of that kind of mix. And now listening to it, like a lot of people who have heard it, who I've actually, shown it to, being proud of my brother and everything, like it's one of those moments where you're just like, oh shit, that was good. Like why didn't it do something?
I think it's just a different time. It's a different time. I watched, I can't remember his name, but there's a guy who does a lot of music industry kind of stuff, helps and advises artists of how to release music and what to do with social media and all that stuff now. And I just think, the early 90s, we're talking about, literally 1990 onwards. You just, it was just harder. It was just so much harder. You didn't have the kind of avenues that you can follow that you have now. There's never been a better time, really, to release music, I think. As much as everyone kind of raves about, oh no, Spotify don't pay, and these guys don't pay, and blah 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 blah. All of that stuff is true, but the big difference is, if you, like, for example, we released a demo, which we kind of funded ourselves. So we went in the studio for a week to record, because we didn't have, you didn't have laptops that you could do all of this amazing stuff on then in the early 90s. So we spent, $3,000 or whatever recording a demo, and then one of us had a tape to tape machine, and we literally kind of manually recorded the copies of that, took the cassette stickers to the printers and said, we want, the song listing. We literally did it all ourselves. And then you're only selling it to people who you actually know physically, you know, people who you actually see in the world. You can't, with the internet, although it existed, it wasn't a thing that you could really use for promoting your music at the time. It was literally sort of, so we had a little bit of a cult following, mostly kind of friends and people who we actually knew, you know, in the real world. But yeah, I think the big difference was just it being massively harder to kind of break through anywhere. And also, you know, we were really young and none of us had any idea what we were doing as far as, you know, promoting music, as far as managing a band or doing any of that stuff. We would literally just, we know how to play these riffs, and that's it. So yeah, it was kind of unless something happens, unless you get pointed in the right direction, or somebody, you get lucky enough to be spotted by somebody or whatever, you know, there's almost no chance back then of anything happening.
Right, because you gotta get found and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, you literally coming out of that era into, I'm trying to think of bands that that kind of, the one that's popping out really, and it wasn't even the same genre, but like the Arctic Monkeys were, when they sort of burst onto the scene, they were sort of the band that everyone was saying, oh my god, they've literally done it themselves. You know, they've toured extensively up and down the UK, and they've literally thrown all their gear in the back of a van and just played everywhere, and just got that following, that organic kind of following by doing that. They're the last band I can think of that sort of did it that way, if you like. And we, as I say, we were just young and dumb and didn't really know what we were doing as far as that goes. So as soon as we got to the age where people wanted to start going and get married and having kids and stuff, it kind of just sort of just disintegrated, because it was just, you know, it was what it was. We were doing a thing, and then people had kind of better routes to having a sort of successful life, so they did that. But
and,
yeah,
I mean, that bore its own challenges as well. I mean, because you know, leaving what would be the education system at the time to pursue something that you thought maybe would be cool. You know, when you get older, then it's like, oh shit, what do I do now? And so you're going down that path and stuff. But you know, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, I've dug up some of your stuff, and it's gonna embarrass you a little bit because you don't like listen to your own music. But one of the tracks that really kind of resonated with me, and that I listened to a lot when it was available to me on tape. Now it's on this. It's a little easier to access, but the Door is one of those ones that you quite get involved in. Like you're involved in all of them, but you do a few riffs in it, and it's pretty cool. So just to show your earlier work, just to kind of give some reference to those who don't know the music that you made, I'm gonna play that now. So it's gonna be awkward because we're gonna have the camera on, and we're just gonna have to enjoy it for a moment. But there you go.
As I opened up the door, baby. It's all free from the walls, reality. Breaking away.
too hot.
So that's what happens when you don't disconnect your Apple stuff and it's all connected. So there you go. But the guitar riff is coming up right now. I want people to hear that. So yeah, that was to be honest, that was the style other than the phone call. I was and word to the wise, everyone, definitely disconnect your stuff when you're streaming with Apple products. So yeah, the style itself was very it was kind of Guns N' Roses. I mean, if you hear it, even I don't know any of the guys because they were all your friends and stuff, but like just the whole, like the singing and everything, and he even kind of sounded like that, you know. It was just very 90s rock. And I mean, now it's super popular, like everyone loves 90s rock again, so it's like this super popular thing that's going to happen for you if it were to be something that maybe got released now. But it's like records coming back and all that kind of stuff. It's just fun going back to where well kind of began for you. I mean, did you ever think that this stuff was that class? I mean, like you've obviously been making it and you're just kind of getting involved in it. Obviously, you know, you have aspirations to do well, but listening back at it, I mean, it's quality stuff. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I obviously as a like a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old even, I was convinced that was the world-changing music we were making, you know, that was going to at some point magically be introduced to the world and everyone was going to go nuts for it. And you know, as I said, just the way that worked at that time, it just wasn't, you know, that was our naivety to think that we could just go and play in a local pub and miraculously somebody was going to go, oh yeah, that's the stuff. But listening back to it, what makes me laugh is whenever I hear anything, any music that any of my playing sort of from back in the day, I can pinpoint exactly, you know, like from the things that I play on the guitar, I can pinpoint exactly what band I was listening to or what guitarist I was listening to then and go, oh yeah, that's where that little thing that I did there, that I stole that off of so and so, you know, I heard him do that on this record and that's why I did that there and stuff. It's quite funny, really. you know, it's that stuff. At the time, as I say, we were kind of like, yeah, this is it. This is going to happen. This stuff is amazing. Like when we came out of recording it, obviously, kids really sort of from that era, not really knowing what we were doing, not understanding the industry, not even understanding how making records worked. And we kind of went into the studio and we recorded. And when we started hearing that stuff back, recorded and mixed and then that sort of thing, it was like, oh my God, this is, you know, we sound like, you know, Pearl Jam or whatever. We were convinced it was going to happen, you know. As I say, in hindsight, it's just funny because it was like a really kind of a little bubble we were living in, that we just thought that shit happened to people just without them having to do anything.
Yeah, but I think you know what we kind of talked about earlier as well is when there's a saturation in the market of the same kind of music. I mean, in the 90s, you can pick out like 5 bands that were similar, just because of what they were creating, and it was a recipe for success. So you were kind of making that music, but the difference was you didn't get discovered by a manager that was going to put you on the radio or get you in front of the right people to where you would get noticed for the music that you made. So while yes, it probably was music that could have been successful, I just feel like the timing was off, or like it's not like now where you can go on YouTube or Spotify and get a million listens by just being really good at social media.
Yeah, I mean, it's about like back then and, you know, before, throughout the years, if you look at like music history, these kind of little genres pop up from like geographic kind of genres as much as style genres. So the stuff that we were making really was the stuff that was coming out of Seattle, through the sort of really late 80s into the 90s, you know, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, those kind of grunge bands, even Nirvana to a certain extent. The guy singing on that on our stuff then was a massive like Nirvana fanatic, and there was even, I think he did a like another band at the time playing songs that were basically a Nirvana ripoff, that we kind of said we can't do those in this band because that we're not about just literally, you know, it's not about writing a song that sounds exactly like Nirvana, you know, we don't really want to do that. So he did his own kind of like little side project at the time where he was doing his Nirvana stuff. And I think, yeah, you know, we were from Croydon. There wasn't there was a little music scene in Croydon, but it wasn't producing world dominating bands, whereas Seattle was. If we'd moved to Seattle, then things might have been completely different, but
maybe, yeah,
but that wasn't really an option. So as I say now, you know, that side of things is totally kind of flipped on its head, and it's, you know, there's never been a better time really to, because even if you get to a point, or got to a point in the 90s where you made a record, you had a distribution thing, you know, they were going to put it in HMV or, you know, whatever shops around the way, it has a shelf life, you know. So
yeah,
once the prints that you've done are sold out, once you're not in the top 40 or whatever anymore, those shops move you to the back of, you know, they move your record to the back of the shop. Then it gradually, and then it's in the, you know, it's in the warehouse in a box in the back corner somewhere. Whereas now, everything that we do will live forever. You know, everything that you put on Spotify has got the potential to live forever as long as Spotify exists. That your music will be there, you know, for somebody to find. And you kind of, it's a double-edged sword, because there's so much music being produced that it's harder to find stuff, maybe, you know, if you're not, as you say, if you're not kind of savvy with social media and releasing music online, then obviously there's a saturation of all music really. But at the same time, somebody can find your music forever, you know, from now until that stuff. That it's one of the things really that my album it's one of the sort of, obviously it was a uni project, but one of the things that pushed me to actually release it rather than just submit it for uni and then forget about it was just that, exactly that. Just get it on there, just put it on there, let it do its thing, let it sort of, then I can dip back into that. I can kind of, do remixes, re-release it. I can push it on social media when I understand what I'm doing a bit more with that, and it's just there forever for anybody to sort of to find or not. So it's as I say, it's kind of, there's never, from that point of view, there's never been a better time to be releasing music, really.
Right. And I mean, the thing for me as well is that you did stop for, I mean, you were in bands and stuff and you were playing and doing all that kind of thing, but once the band kind of broke up, like you said, it was just you took a moment to, you were involved in different things and you were still playing and staying active within music, but it wasn't like, it was more trying to make money or trying to find something to put food on the table or whatever. And until you really kind of focused your efforts on doing teaching and stuff that you're doing now, which I mean, that's a pretty cool thing. I mean, you showing people how to play guitar is a pretty admirable thing, but it's also like you're kind of you're passing your talent along the line, I guess. But now having something to create, you're even more, you're the cool teacher, because like, look what I made, kind of. You know what I mean? Yeah. Were you ever like? I mean, obviously getting into college and stuff, that's a big deal when you're a little bit older. Like, did that ever like phase you? Have you just kind of gotten to that point where it's just like, screw it, I need to do something, I need to change something?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of scary because in a lot of ways, as you said, I sort of deviated as soon as I kind of grew up a bit and realized that that the music thing, as far as creating, wasn't going to be straightforward. It wasn't going to be a case of, if you build it, they will come, kind of thing.
Right.
So as soon as I realized that, and it was like you say, just needed to put food on the table and actually make a living. So the avenues to that were still playing in bands, but playing, like doing functions, playing like weddings and stuff, and did various things like that. And I still kind of dabbled in the creative side, writing and that sort of thing. But really, I kind of got a bit jaded by it, if that's even a thing in your 20s. But having spent from age like 15 to maybe 21 thinking, this is what I'm going to do, this is the path, and then realizing that's not going to work out, I kind of went, I don't even, I don't want to write or anything like that. And I, as you say, I sort of just took a bit of a hiatus from it, and just stopped really, playing for myself. And just it became a functional thing of not having to get a real job, really, just doing the teaching. Right. And then coming back around, I mean, like the uni thing was something. I remember like working in a music shop when I was like 18, not knowing what I was going to do, and mum saying, look, why don't you just go back to uni? Why don't you go and do a music degree or whatever? And I was still 18, so I still kind of knew everything and was like, the Beatles didn't know how to read music, and just reeled out all those cliches as to why I didn't need to go back and study or anything. So I never did it. And then at various points, I've kind of gone, maybe I should do that. Shall I do that? And then those fears, that being, as I got older, it became harder and harder to take that step and just go, I'm going to go back and eat some humble pie and just go, I don't know everything, I need to learn some shit. And actually, really, it was finally COVID, it was lockdowns and all that stuff that pushed me, because it was like, I lost all my I was teaching in schools and stuff, and then immediately when COVID hit, all the schools were closed, and they were like, we're not having guitar teachers coming into the school because it's too risky for the spread of COVID and all that stuff. So because I was sort of because I was kind of, it was like a 0 hours contract that I was on in all my schools. So they weren't under any obligation to pay me sick pay or any of that stuff. So they just went, sorry, you're on your own. And I was just kind of sat here going, what am I going to do? And then I just thought, well, at 47, I think 46, I just thought, if I'm not going to do it now, then it is never going to happen. I might as well just go and do it now and suck it up, like I say. And it was scary. And originally, my final project, which was the album, was going to be a documentary about exactly that, about the fears of having to, as a mature student, having to go back and sit with all these like 19-year-olds who are supremely more talented than I am, and just kind of, like I say, eat a bit of humble pie and go, I need to learn some stuff here. But obviously it changed from doing that. It kind of then evolved into getting back into work and teaching again and stuff, where it just, I kind of ran out of time really to do the project that I wanted to do. So it just became, I need to do an album, which was it was still a massive undertaking, because I was doing that while in full-time education and full-time work. And sort of writing and recording everything myself. It was a big thing. And I think I kind of learned a lot about myself and how I work, and working to deadlines and all of those sort of things, which in hindsight,
it immensely changed your production, though. I mean, just following through some of the stuff that you've done. Obviously, the first thing that you put in there was Batten Down the Hatches demo, which is just instrumental. But then you did Stay Love, which is a lot more vocal stuff. And it's almost like, as we go through the tracks, it's almost like you're just growing in confidence as you go, learning tricks, learning different things. Obviously because you're in college doing music or whatever, but it's just you because you're around creators, you're kind of going, well, shit, I can do that. So you're kind of giving yourself more opportunity to try new things. And while it is still hiding on SoundCloud, it is still out there, and SoundCloud is a pretty big app. So, I mean, was that just part of just the process? You, like you said, you were kind of jaded or whatever, but you're going back to college and then gradually just being around these people that are creating and wanting to create, it just kind of feeds off into you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the degree that I chose was very much not a standard music degree. It wasn't like learn how to read music and learn music theory or any of that stuff. It was very much oriented around like creativity, being creative, songwriting and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was fully that. I mean, it was kind of, there's a couple of things I'm not sure. I think there's one of the tracks that's still up on SoundCloud, which was from a band that I formed a few years earlier, which was when I started kind of getting back into writing a little bit and was starting to try and see if I could sing as well, and sort of be the front person in the band. Which is I can't remember what the track is called, but there's one on there anyway. And again, I didn't really have a clue about kind of recording or anything like that. I was still very much a kid of the 90s and thought, you need to go into a studio and pay somebody to do all of that work. So we did that again, for some of those demos, and mixed results really. And I'm definitely, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm 100% happy with the outcome of what I've done, what I've done now, but it's, the difference is having learned how to actually use, I mean, it's all in the box, it's all on a laptop, it's all software stuff, apart from, obviously the vocals and the guitar playing, everything is software instruments. So yeah, learning how to use Logic and produce and mix and all of that stuff really. As I say, I wouldn't say I've finished that journey. I wouldn't say I'm anywhere close to being like sort of satisfied really with the outcome, but I can hear the difference between that and what I've done sort of
Right.
previously. It's night and day.
I wanna get Stay Love up here once we get past this stupid ad that seems to pop up on this lovely app. But it's mainly because as we kind of progress through the journey of what you created, like this is when you did a bit of vocal, and I think this is right around when you started college, and making something and then putting it out there. Obviously, you shared it with me before you even put it on, which was cool. And obviously, the whole reason I'm doing this is that I'm super proud of my brother, and I want to like everyone to hear the music. But on top of that, like just the creativity that's evolved from what you were in the band Dangerous Liaison to you just saying fuck it and making your own stuff, and just having the I guess the confidence building stuff that goes along with that. So this one is Stay Love. I don't really need to get into the reasons why things are called what they're called, but it's the first one that you actually do some vocals that aren't like screamo or anything like that. You can hear the voice. So we're gonna do that right now. If it plays, hold on. There we go.
Sitting here wasting away, looking at tomorrow, a brand new day. Train goes slow. Finally making up my mind. Nothing I do, nothing inside. The train goes slow. I can find a change in me. I know I'm not the same as I used to. I wanna do right by you. Keep trying to push on. So I can't see the light burning out. Without you, won't stay. George is gone. Working to won't stay. These moments of clouds, there's nothing shadow. Go slow. So now forget everything. Go slow. I can see the light burning out.
So that was Stay Love. I didn't want to go the whole 4.5 minutes, but it gives you the kind of the vibe of what the song is and the difference in the production. Obviously, you've gone and made something that is vastly different to what you've made in the 90s, and mainly because you're kind of exploring creativity again, which is really cool, because you got to find your own style, you got to find your own rhythm, you got to find what you're trying to create, I guess. No more than podcasting or anything, you got to find a voice or a reason for doing it, and Stay Love was really cool. Is there was that a song that you feel like it was just the early one that you're just kind of finding your feet, or
There's kind of a lot. There's a lot really about that song. It was kind of it was the first one that sort of really when I first went into uni. So the first year was very much online because we were still in COVID, and then that was the first thing really that that I did while being in sort of in uni, and it was exactly what you've just said. It was what kind of musician am I going to be? What kind of artist am I going to be? What kind of music am I going to make? And I didn't know, because I'd done all of that stuff years before, but that was really the sort of the first song that I'd written in the last sort of almost probably 20 years. Well, there's a couple of things
yeah,
that, as I said, that came out before that, but yeah, that was me going, okay, what's coming out? When I sit and play and sing or whatever, what type of music is coming out? What do I sound like? And all of those sort of things. So it was a bit of a kind of exploration. And yeah, you can hear it all in there, really, the sort of the basicness of it. And it's not going to be, it's not like feel good hit of the summer, obviously. But it's yeah, there's a lot in there, and mostly, as you say, it was just what kind of music am I going to make, and it was just a throw some stuff together and see what it sounds like, see whether I like it, see whether I think that's what I want to be making. And yeah, it was very much the sort of the start of that, even though it was kind of the end of the first year. It was very much the start of the process of finding my feet, I guess.
yeah. You then went on to make what you've released, which a lot of, like, I've had a lot of artists on here, and all the time we talk about the same kind of subjects because artists are very similar in the creative process, but it's always about finding a voice for the experiences that you've had or the feelings that you have, and then putting it on paper and making it feel like a song or whatever. The one we just listened to was you creating a song, but like you said, you were still trying to find out what kind of artist you were going to be. But this, like we talked before, we hit record, it was obviously stuff or based on like things that you can kind of resonate with, or putting a label on something that you may have been going through or whatever. How difficult is it for you to like do that kind of stuff? Because when you're writing a song, you're really putting yourself out there. And then on top of that, when you start saying, hey, actually it was mental health stuff that kind of was fueling my creative process, this is and then the creativity and the artwork and everything was just there. It kind of makes it a little vulnerable, like,
Yeah, I think one of the things really learning about sort of songs and trying to understand how different creatives operate. There was a few things that sort of went on really at uni where we were learning about how David Bowie wrote songs, and how the guy from Tool writes for 3 different bands, and the things that sort of creatives do. So it was part of kind of learning that. And that song is very much, if you can hear, as you said, if you can hear the kind of the subject matter really from that song is exactly, I was really just going, this is the story, this is a kind of a thing that I was going through. It's sort of very much a specific like time in my life where
Right.
there was some shit going on, and that is what that was. In a way, that was me kind of experimenting with, like you say, literally just laying it all out there and going, this is me telling exactly what was happening. And since then, I think I've looked at lots of different ways of writing. And like I said, like David Bowie is very famous for obviously singing in character. He wasn't really, he never really, didn't really sing like openly about himself. He was singing from the perspective of the characters that he created. And a lot of people do that. And then James Maynard Keenan from Tool, as I said, he's in sort of like 3 different bands, and he has this thing where he wears a different hat for writing with the different projects. So he literally puts I don't know what the hats are, but he literally puts like a cowboy hat on or whatever to write for one of the bands, so that he kind of can subconsciously or consciously kind of change the persona that he's writing from the perspective of. So there's lots of those sort of things. I think I don't think I really kind of settled on this is how I write yet. Some of the stuff on the album is kind of literal, some of it's metaphorical. It's a bit of a kind of, there is a bit of a character in there, it's a bit of a sort of story. But yeah, there's lots of different ways of approaching that. And that particular song then was me going, what happens if I just literally go, to not to be too blunt about it, but I'm feeling, suicidal. This is the story. This is the sort of theme of the song is literally my wife saying to me, don't do it. Just stay a bit longer, just take a breath, kind of chill. And so that was me kind of experimenting, thinking like, what happens if I just literally write this story of that. So it's,
and then the characters of this, you've picked some. I mean, the artwork's amazing. I love the artwork. I mean, it's monsters and pirates and sea creatures, and the titles of the songs are very themed along those lines. But when you like you were saying, because you were trying to find a character, it's almost you're writing about you, but you're depersonalizing it, because number one, you've called yourself a mantle Hollowbody, and number two, you're, even though it's maybe related to stuff that's going on with you, you're putting in a story that is far detached from the real world. So like Wasting, Finding Captain Nemo, Sirens, Catacombs, Hold Fast, Sail into the Sun, Unbelonging, No Place Like Home, By the Gaslight. These titles, while the content and the lyrics and everything may relate, you've found a way to be more secure in just laying it all out there like you did in the first song, because making yourself vulnerable is not always an easy thing. And that album is just littered with, I mean, if you listen to every track and listen to all the lyrics, knowing you could hear some of the stuff, but not knowing who you are personally, you're just kind of going, this is really good music,
Yeah, that's the I think that's the gist of really what I kind of wanted to do with it. It was exploring. So for my stuff, for the written element of uni, it was very much exploring like that thing, using metaphor to sort of describe the struggles, mental health struggles and things like that, so that you don't have to go, I'm really feeling shit at the moment, so that your lyrics aren't as literal as I'm really sad, I'm really I'm happy about this stuff that's happening in my life, or any of that. You don't have to be as literal as that. And as you say, exactly that. You know, the whole thing of not putting it out there as me, Russ Parker, doing this stuff, actually saying, right, this is another kind of entity. It's like a different persona, and sort of detaching it a little bit from that sort of personal thing, because I think you know, one of the things I picked up really from uni, from one of the lecturers at uni, was you know, that music, when people listen to music, they're not listening to it about the person that wrote it, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it relates.
They're relating it to themselves.
Yeah.
So it kind of made more sense to go, I'm going to write this song using a kind of a metaphor, or, you know, using the whole sea creatures and that sort of thing, and the pirates and all that sort of stuff, and some of those nautical kind of terminologies that I used in the lyrics, so that I can go, this is what it means to me, but you listen to it, and what does it mean to you? You know, that's really the gist of, because that's really what music is about. Even if you don't intend to do that, I think that's what people do anyway. You know, you listen to something, and it's, people always talk about, when you hear a piece of music that reminds you of childhood or whatever, it's a specific thing that is only relevant to you, as you know, personally. It's not something that will have the same impact on everybody, and that's why, you know, that's why that's why everyone loves music. Nobody doesn't listen to music, because it's about finding whatever it is that resonates with you. So
yeah, I mean, the like you said, you can have a song that you've listened to and it reminds you of, like, it could be a wedding song, it could be the song you walk down the aisle to, but then another person, that song could remind them of it could remind them of a sad time in their life, because it's that's just what it is. So that's what music has kind of become. So we're not gonna go through every track, because that's another 38 minutes of listening, but I'm gonna pick some tracks that are just ones that kind of live, that are the better tracks in my opinion of the album, just because musically you've really found your rhythm at that point. So the first one is Finding Captain Nemo. It's actually Rory's, one of Rory's favorites. He has me play it in the car all the time. So this is Finding Captain Nemo. Let's hope this doesn't disconnect. All right, here we go. So, honestly, creatively, there's no comparison to what you've made before. It's it surpasses pretty much everything creatively you've done before, just because you put yourself out there. You're using different methods. The voice is auto tune or whatever you're using. You've got all these different things that you're using because, and that's kind of why we played the earlier stuff is. You've evolved and you found a way to create something that nobody can go, hey, that sounds like something else because it's just yours versus, other stuff maybe from the 90s, you could say, yeah, it was great, but it was in a certain mixture and it was kind of following in the footsteps of stuff that was already released and all that. There's nothing else out there that sounds like this. Although a producer that was on here last that we were kind of kicking it after I recorded with him said it's kind of Rob Zombie-ish, but it's still very you. How does it you're just kind of awkwardly listening to yourself. It's like listening to my own podcast. I just don't do it. But
yeah,
does it like evoke memories or bring up emotions or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, mostly I'm still at the point where because it's not long been finished. I'm still at the point where I'm anytime I hear any little bits, I sort of go, maybe I'll go back and fix that little thing that I've noticed that nobody else will notice, but to me it'll kind of bug me, and it's one of the reasons why lots of things happened. One of them was obviously uni really enabled me to do that because there was a deadline, so I couldn't perpetually go, it's not finished, I need to fix this, I need to go back and re-record that bit of vocal or any of that stuff. It was like, you got to have it done by this date. And that's why I released it straight away, really. When I kind of went the first time, okay, it's finished, I'm submitting it to uni, I'm going to release it at the same time, because I don't want to submit it to uni and then go, no, I've rewritten that song, I've reworked that, and because
right.
I'll do that forever. At some point I might do something like that. I might kind of go back and revisit some things, but for the moment I'm just like, I need to draw a line under it and say, that's finished, that is what that's going to be. And then you're talking about sort of the evolution really of stuff that I've done before and that sort of thing. That is kind of now the journey, if you like, not to sound too kind of pompous or whatever, but now it's like stuff that I'll learn from this, I'll fix on the next release, I'll fix on the next album, and hopefully make that little bit better again, rather than just go, oh no, I need to re-record that guitar solo because I fluffed that note at the end or whatever, because one of the things sort of being in and around and involved in sort of music for for as long as I have is that, you know, most people, I learned it a while ago, you know, when you're playing live, most people don't listen to what you're doing in the same way that you listen to yourself when you're playing. You know,
Yeah.
when you're playing at a live show and stuff, you have people come up to you afterwards going, "Oh yeah, that solo that you played on so and so was amazing," and I'm standing there thinking, "No, I fucked that up. I made such a mess of that. How did you not hear that?" Do you know what I mean? And it's not because people aren't, you know, as evolved or they're not listening properly or anything like that. It's just because when you go to see a band, you don't listen to all of the elements of that individually in the same way that the people that are playing it do. You know,
Yeah.
a drummer who's actually playing is going to sit there and listen to every little beat that he hits, every drum that he hits. He's going to know exactly what he did, where he scuffed the edge of the drum and didn't make that hit properly on the second verse or whatever, you know, and nobody else is going to notice that at all. And it, to a certain extent, it's the same with, you know, with recorded music. You kind of, the way other people will listen to what you've done will be as a whole, and they're not really kind of picking it apart the same way that you would listen to your own music. That's just the way it is. And because, you know, like, I know when I listen back that there were bits where I didn't go back and fix something when I was recording it because it was like,
Yeah.
you know, it was late at night or whatever, and I was like, no, I'll do that at some other time. I need to leave that for the moment and just get on with finishing it or whatever. And then I'll keep listening to it and I'll go, oh, I still haven't gone back and fixed that. And then you get to a point where it's like, if I now go back and fix that, that will uncover other things that need sort of fixing. Do you know what I
So
mean?
you just
And
never stop tweaking.
exactly. And yeah, you can get into that kind of, that spiral of tweakage. Exactly. You just kind of never
you just
perpetual
constantly
fixing stuff.
messing and messing and messing. Yeah. Tony, thanks for watching, buddy. I appreciate the comments. Yeah, I mean, just going through the next one we're going to do is Sail into the Sun. Just because, again, it's just another version of you. Like you're learning how to use your voice. You're learning how to open up. There's a couple more on here that it's just crazy to me that you've learned other instruments. I didn't know that you knew how to do drums. I didn't know that you could do a bit of violin. I didn't know that all this stuff. And all like it's I've said it to Katie, I've said it to a few other people. It's like all of a sudden my brother just released a fucking album, and I'm introducing new artists all the time, and here I have one in my own family, and it's just it's kind of surreal. It's one of those weird moments in life that you're just like, okay, full circle. So this one is Sail into the Sun. I mean, these are tracks that you've basically figured out a story to, and it sounds a lot like you're speaking to that story. And you were saying privately that you know it's your friend's artwork, and you kind of saw his artwork and you were like, that would be really cool to kind of play with and make it into that journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is kind of inspired by that. You know, the cover, that sculpture, that exists in real life. He's actually he's made that thing. So the original kind of permutation of that is a physical sculpture. It's like 2 meters square. He's sold it. It's on someone's wall somewhere. And when I saw it, it was like, oh my god, that's just like the themes have been something that's kind of bubbled along for me for a while. It was like, you know, this kind of, as I say, the metaphor thing for the sea creatures and the inner battles and all that sort of, and also, you know, there's a little element of kind of, you know, the climate crisis and all of those sort of things involved in the album. It's really those three things. It's like the hero's journey. So that's kind of the template. That's the arc, if you like, of the story, which is, you know, my inner struggles with my inner demons, if for lack of a better way of putting that, and then versus the actual physical kind of there's big squid in the ocean, you know, that are chewing up pirate ships, and then, you know, what we're doing to the ocean and to the planet, and those sort of things as well. So it's kind of all of those things. And yeah, that's the running order of the songs is kind of the hero's journey. In a way, it's kind of very much that sort of, you know, if you follow the steps of various people's versions of the hero's journey, it's like the call to action, and then something happens, you know, then you fight this kind of thing, then you got the battle with the caves or whatever, you know, all of that stuff, and then finally coming back to home, but it's all different now, and all of that stuff. That's the sort of
what's cool as well is that you've done it like I don't want to say old school, but it is old school, because if you listen to the tracks in order, it is a story. Like,
yeah, it's a concept album. It's definitely that was the plan, was to make it as a concept album. So it's one of the, although it sounds nothing like that, one of the kind of sort of influences, if you like, is Pink Floyd's The Wall, which is again that same sort of thing. It's follows that, and again, originally when I sort of came up with the idea for uni, I was going to make it as originally a documentary. Then it turned into like, I'm going to make the music and I'm going to do like an animated film, get some sort of animation going on, like Pink Floyd's The Wall, where you've got a mixture of kind of live action and then a bit of animation, and some cool visuals that are going on in it. And it's yeah, the whole thing is sort of in order. It's a story. So some of those tunes aren't really, you know, they're not really songs as such. There's kind of
more like a soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of it. Yeah,
it's exactly that. You know, that's how it happened, because it was really, ideally, it was kind of one piece of music that runs the whole thing, and then there's a few tunes that are traditional songs, if you like, that would stand alone. But generally, it's the objective is to listen to it from start to finish as a story.
All right. Well, we're gonna break that mold and listen to "Sail Into the Sun." So here we go. So Sailing to the Sun is the reason I played that is because there's so many elements to that you've just, I mean, number one, you're singing, then there's this I don't even know. I think you've obviously come home drunk one night and decided that was a really cool voice. But it's incredibly effective for the song. It's really good. But then at the end, I had to wait till the very end because that's you as well doing the high bit, because you've used all elements of music production to kind of make that one whole tune, and it's just cool. I mean,
it's it's kind of, it is me singing, but I kind of cheated a little bit. So I did the vocal, but then I used a pitch shifter to raise it up so that it sounds like a female vocal. So
yeah, well, that's
I'm not,
okay.
I'm not
That's what
actually
I mean.
singing that high.
Yeah, no, but you're using the tricks of music production to be able to do that kind of stuff. And I mean, let's face it, you didn't have that back in the day, and there wasn't those kind of tricks of that you have now, and computers weren't so prevalent. Ian, by the way, thanks for checking us out. Ian is a music artist as well. He's I guess you call him pop Ian, maybe. Is that kind of what you're doing? Pop R&B. Has some pretty big songs that you might know, but you know, yeah, I mean, Ian will know the same kind of thing. When you're making the track, you're going to use every element that you have, every tool that you have, and you did all that, and it's made a really cool song. I mean, not to ruin it, because I want people to go out and actually listen to the whole thing, but before that, there's the element of the hold fast that you have, before that, like an entry into the song. And then there's a number of tracks, but after that are not so much songs, but more kind of soundtracks again of what the story is. No Place Like Home, By the Gaslight, and then Gonna Need a Bigger Boat. I love the names of the tracks, but By the Gaslight is the one that is just, because I didn't know that you had drumming as a thing. Like, obviously I've listened to the tracks, but drumming was like something that I didn't even know you could do. And if I were to pick a song that was going to leave and go onto the charts or be released as a single, it would be By the Gaslight, just because it has those elements. It has pretty much everything that you would want from a song. It's got the guitar riff and everything. Like, how long did it take you to write all this stuff?
So there's a few bits. There was a few bits that I've kind of been writing from before I started uni. There's a couple of little guitar bits that and song ideas that I had, and it's what you mentioned about the titles. One of the things about the titles is some of those, like Gonna Need a Bigger Boat, wasn't, that was just a working title for the piece of music that I'd started recording, and I needed to save the file as something. And it was obviously a Jaws reference, because it was, just one of those sort of things that was in my mind at the time. So I was like, I called it that. And then that was the song, obviously, that was going to be the end. And so I wanted it to be called The End because it was kind of the end. But because I'd called it Gonna Need a Bigger Boat, I was like, I need to keep that because I love that. I like that.
Yeah.
As being the song. So that's why I did the whole kind of, that's what it's called, but then in brackets, The End. The Finding Captain Nemo thing was kind of a sort of a double reference to the Jules Verne thing, which is obviously all nautical oriented things, with a play on the Finding Nemo, and again, it was just a working title. It was something that probably years ago I thought, oh, that'd be a good name for a song, that's quite funny, sort of thing. And then when I started recording that, it was just, it hadn't evolved to have a name at that point. So it was like, it needs to be called something so that I can save the file, and that's what I called it. And then it was like, no, I need to keep that now because it's it's part of it, and it sort of kind of fits. I think it's with the whole hero's journey thing, those titles kind of fit. With The End, it's again, it's one of those ones, kind of one of those mental health sort of related songs that The End was really the kind of the end. If we put it into a literal sense of the story of what's happening, it's the moment where the guy kind of realizes that the monster is within. It's not actually a sea monster at all. It's kind of, the monster is within him, and then it's the whole kind of parallel with the human race realizing that we're actually the monster. We're actually the ones destroying the planet, and all of those sort of things. So it was kind of a sort of a realization song, and the end of the story, because he was going to either succumb to the monster, or take his own life or whatever. But then as the project went on, I got to that end point, and then it felt like it felt the song sort of feels like a sinking ship to an extent, but then being called Gonna Need a Bigger Boat was almost like the bit at the end of the film where the protagonist kind of or the bad guy or whatever in a horror film, like, opens one eye, you think he's dead, and then just as the credits are about to roll, you see an eye open, and it's like, oh yeah, there's going to be a sequel, because he's still alive or whatever. That was kind of, that's what that turned into, was basically like, oh, there may be, and that's also the title of the album, which Ośmiornica, which is a Polish word, just because I really like the word, for octopus. So that's what the album's called. But then the Roman numeral 1 is to say that that's like the first part, if you like. so there may be a sequel.
Well, with the relatability to, like you said, mental health or whatever, it is, I guess, the inner demon may not be gone kind of thing. So it's like, it's got a lot of cool references in there. I'm going to play By the Gaslight just because I think it's a cool track. Not that Rory listens to my podcast, but it is the one that he makes me pretend I'm drumming in the front of the car. So here we go. That's the part of the song where we all join in and sing along in the car. Yeah, honestly, I don't think I'm the only one that's going to think that's the song to release off the album, because it is kind of, it is everything. It's lots of like mental health references in there. lots of inner struggles, lots of the story. It's just everything. And then the slowing it down to kind of, there's the angry tone at the very beginning, and then there's this mellow kind of almost like self-realization where, you know, it's, hey, calm down, okay, now we gotta sing. It's just, it's very part of the story. It's a really cool track. And I mean, the whole album is awesome. I think that anyone that can create an album is awesome. But the fact that it's you, and the fact that you've done this yourself, it's a solo deal, like you're piecing, I mean, the complicated nature of just how you created this with drums, guitars, singing, adding in elements, using a computer, whatever. It's really difficult. I mean, I cheat. I have an editor here. I just hit buttons and I do things and it works. But you're recording elements, you're tweaking elements, you're putting it all together, you're making it one track, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, obviously, I'm a little biased, but I don't think I will be the only one that feels that way after this. So, like, what? I mean, what's the next step for you? I mean, you're creatively, are you already kind of writing new stuff? You're probably the coolest teacher around at this point after anyone hearing that, but where is the next step for you?
I mean, coming out of obviously the hecticness of uni deadlines and stuff, having said that was obviously a positive thing at the time because it made me finish it. It also kind of made me think I need to just chill for a minute and have the summer off and not think about. I mean, I've got some little things in the back of my mind, little ideas and things for what will happen in the future musically, but at the moment I'm kind of like I've joined a ska band, so I'm sort of playing some gigs again and just really kind of chilling a little bit as far as that goes. I'm not sitting down and kind of forcing myself to write. But I think like the long-term plan will be, as much as I'm sort of happy, well, I'm mostly happy with the results of you know, putting a whole album out there. I think in the future what I'll do is spend more time just on individual tracks, just release some individual tracks and then, you know, put them together as an album sort of at a later point.
Or an EP or something.
Yeah, exactly. Just not, I don't really want to put myself under the pressure of going, right, you need to do a follow-up album this year or next year or whatever. Because I just, you know, I think one of the restrictive things about doing it as a whole album was really kind of, there's a few moments, like it's interesting that you talked about By the Gaslight as being the tune for you, because for me that was like, that's the last one that I finished, and it was probably one of the ones that I struggled with the most, because of the way I wrote and recorded it. The whole thing, there was a lot of moments where I was recording things, like recording guitar bits with like a little chorus or a bridge or something vocally recorded on there with no idea of what the rest of the song was going to do. So that song was like, I had lots of the music recorded, but I didn't have any idea what I was going to sing on it, because some of the stuff was written really as with the view of it being an instrumental. And then I got to the point with that song and where I wanted to put it on the album, it was like, kind of needs to be a song. It needs to have some lyrics and vocals. And so that was, you know, that was one of the last things that I did on it, was finishing that song. So from that point of view, I'd like to spend more time with each individual song. If I you know, when I release stuff in the future, I actually spend a bit more time just going, okay, I've spent the last 6 months, this is the 1 or 2 songs that I've done in that time, rather than going, I've spent 6 months and I'm releasing an album. You know, it's that's just
I mean, shit, look at Ed Sheeran. He's just done 2 albums in the space of, he's releasing another one, and I just don't even know how people do that. But It's nuts. But again, he's a huge advocate for mental health as well. And the one that he released, he specifically released on vinyl because it was a story much like this. It was old school and kind of it needed to be told as a story. And he's gone across the states on radio shows going, if you don't listen to it in order, they're going to be good tracks, but you're not going to make any sense out of it.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like that. We're going to play the last one, Gonna Need a Bigger Boat, just because of that. And then before we head off, you're going to tell me your favorite song of the album, because no pressure.
Of the day, never have to see yourself this way. Listen, I say this is just to say, throw back your head a minute, you'll just go away. It's not hurling away. All my possessions and the poison I obey. God needs a thinking, and the end is what I pray. And there's a way here, I'm buried in this grave. It was me who took my life.
Well, so that was gonna need a bigger boat, aka the end. It was. I mean, you talk about Pearl Jam songs. That is a long one. But I mean, it's kind of the story, like you said, you're bookending the story. It's very. I mean, the lyrics. I mean, the lyrics are just almost haunting in a way. And it's again, like you were saying, it's relevant to a lot of things that go on in people's lives, mental health, all that kind of stuff, and realizing, as far as the story, it's realizing that there is no monster; it's actually within you, and that kind of stuff. But so we didn't listen to every track, but what is your track that you enjoyed the most, or the one that you're kind of you
I
had
think
6 minutes to figure this out. So.
Yeah, I know. I've just been sitting there thinking about it. I think as a song, just as a straight kind of like listening to each song kind of just on its own, I think probably "Sailing to the Sun" is the one that for me is the sort of, it's the one that I put as the single. That's the one that kind of for me is the best from that point of view. From a personal point of view, based on like in context of the whole thing, then probably the end. um just because, as I say, from a personal point of view, I think lyrically it's the one that has got the most in there. Even, and guitar wise, it's the one that kind of, I feel like I've performed my performance on stuff is, I think that's where I've did what I wanted to do with that. I think most of the others have got little elements where I'm kind of like, oh, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done that instead, and things. So that, from that point of view, also from the point of view of it being a kind of concept album, there's like the main kind of guitar bit is actually it's the same musically as Sirens, which it was the basis pretty much musically for the whole album. Sirens was the first tune that I recorded. The first little bit I wrote was that little guitar line in that. And so going back to that and sort of returning to that at the end seemed like the thing to do. Even though it's kind of a completely different song and doesn't really sound the same, it's like
it's a haunting kind of riff. You'd hear it like in a movie or a TV show that was kind of creepy, or it was just kind of that. I jokingly said that you'd hear it in a Pirates of the Caribbean movie or something. You know what I mean? Just kind of right when the squid's just coming out or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's I mean, like you said, you're going to take a break or whatever, but I think in a way you've proven to yourself that it can be done. And on top of that, it can be done with, I mean, you did it in 6 months. If you're going to spend 6 months on 2 songs, not to put pressure on you, but if that's the quality you can do with a whole album, then I'm looking forward to what you do next. Just because, I mean, it's great stuff, not just because you're my brother or because of anything, but it's good. It's good music. And that's, people love good music. People always gravitate to good music. I've had several artists out there come on the show, and it's the same kind of thing. It's getting it out there and getting it listened to, and like you said, people resonating with it in a different way, and then finding their own meaning behind it, because your meaning and our meaning and their meaning, and it could be completely different stuff. But so to find this music, because everyone's going to be like, well, shit, I want to listen to the whole song, or let me listen to the whole album. If you've got any streaming app, it's on Spotify, Apple Music, just pick one. And it's Hollowbody. And then you're going to notice that there's this squid-like creature in the album cover. And lucky for you, there's only one album, so you're not going to have to look too hard for different covers. It's actually the first thing that pops up. So far we're getting some listens on there, but I'm hoping that we can track a little bit better after this. So anyone that's just joining now, because we did do it late at night in America, early morning in the UK. This is going to be on Facebook to replay to your heart's content. It's going to be available on YouTube forevermore, and then on all podcasts, forums, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you listen to podcasts on. Doesn't really matter. It's all there. Amazon, you name it. It's going to be there, so you can listen back to your heart's content. That has been a pretty long episode of the unscripted perspective, but it seems that lives tend to do that lately with all the questions and the stuff that happens. To everyone that checked in with us, Chadrick, Ian, Tony, leaving comments, and everyone else that didn't, I appreciate you tuning in and giving us a chance to entertain and give you something to think about. Until next time, go with grace, and we will chat to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to leave us a rating or review on your favorite listening platform.
Be sure to keep in touch with us on Facebook and Instagram at
The Unscripted Perspective,
or you can visit us at
www.theunscriptedperspective.com.